Hello guys, so a bit of a brief introduction. My name is Neale. As said, I started a fashion brand about 2 years ago. I run it with my partner Casper, who's probably sat in the room recording sound bites to play back to me later and take the piss out of me. I was asked to come here and talk to you about how we incorporate our influences of British life and British humour into our playful animated graphic prints, which I'm obviously wearing. So there's going to be a load of images that play throughout my presentation and while I'm talking. They don't necessarily reference to what I'm talking about, but hopefully if you guys all look, if you don't know me, don't know about what the brand is, if you look at the lookbooks that you've got with you on your chairs, that you'll hopefully be able to start to sort of build a picture, build the puzzle and the connections between what I absorb and how I translate this into what we do in the clothing. So they're going to change about, I think it's about 100 images, and they change about every 5 seconds. With me talking, it's a lot to take in, but hopefully it will work. So I'm going to go. I grew up in London. I grew up in South East London, on the borders of East Dulwich, Peckham. I always say Peckham because no one knows what East Dulwich is, and East Dulwich isn't really cool to say. Then at 14, my parents decided to take me out of London and move me to a really shit town on the southeast coast of London called Gosport. No one's ever heard of it. It's a small little navy town full of about 50,000 people. When I moved there, there was a bit of commotion going on as the then Labour government wanted to put in an asylum centre which housed about 400 single men and women. Coming from Peckham into an environment where there was majority white community, all in uproar that a load of asylum seekers that were described as swan-eating terrorists, I was completely baffled, and all of a sudden I realised that my bubble had burst and my protection about what I knew about the world and what I knew about England had all changed. All of a sudden I started to sort of see things, see people in different lights. I was getting chased home and having to get police escorts home because I would attend a protest march where the B&B would be sort of blaring on about things. I'd be like, what are you doing? Shush! Turns out not to be a good idea to do that at the age of 14. So I started to sort of see lots of different sides of what was around me. And I think at that age it's quite a crucial point because you start to sort of look into yourself and build your own identity. So for me, in that environment, wanting to sort of bring my London back with me and sort of looking at magazines like The Face and ID and being like, wow, they can dress like that, I can dress like that. So one week I would be like pretending that I was a third member of Crisscross, wearing my jeans back to front and being all hip hop, and then the next time I'll be like wearing a skirt to my school prom or something ridiculous like that, and 5-inch heels at the time, I remember. The pictures. I thought I was being really unique, and then I realised, actually, I was just being typically British, because I think Britain is full of eccentrics. I think we have a history of it, from the Vikings through to anyone that dresses in a flamboyant way. Anything that's celebratory, if you look at sort of a lot of the images that you'll see, they might be sort of from folk traditions. They might be Morris dancers, or my favourite, which is rapid dancing, where there's a load of guys dancing in a small little pub with a load of swords, and then a drag queen would run all the way through. Bizarre. But we sort of create this world where we're really actually quite creative, and I find it quite fascinating how we are quite creative. You look at like Guy Fawkes Night, and which I find bizarre because we're celebrating the murder and execution of a man, but weird, but hey. But people are really creative and imaginative on how they create their Guy Fawkes, and there's a load of images somewhere in there of a load of Guy Fawkes sort of stacked up ready to be burnt. Then there's the hen parties and the stag do's. Lots of people actually dismiss them. I find them quite amazing and find them quite fascinating because they're so creative and flamboyant, and I think they carry a lot of the characteristics of being British. There's our normal everyday lives, such as my dad's allotment, which was my first collection back in 2012, autumn 2012, which was about my dad's allotment and his fascination with Elvis. So we did a video where all the models were sort of doing karaoke to the Hound Dog tune. So it's, you know, there's this world of what we are as being British, and I think for me, I was like, right, how can I incorporate that and muddle it all up and put it into a brand? The thing is, though, I started to realise that actually we dress for occasions, and in our everyday life, we don't really dress up. You dress up to go out for an evening, to do something sort of fabulous, but you don't necessarily dress up to go to work. I think it was Charlie who mentioned earlier about why would you wear a suit? You know, and I find that quite a funny sort of weird thing. I mentioned I mentioned stag do's, and I find it weird how it's acceptable that a guy can sort of dress up in drag and on a hen night, and in his crowd it's all weird, it's all cool, yet for another guy to dress up in drag and walk down the street past that same bunch of men, it might not be so acceptable. Equally, with men, we're known to be wearing not much colour and not much print. Yet, I did an internship about 4 years ago now with Ducky Brown, and one of the designers is British, and always sort of said to me, yet men can wear colour when they're in the football ground. They can wear pink and orange and purple and green and be really elaborate and fancy dressed, and it's all acceptable in that surrounding. So we sort of try and explore these and try and put these into everyday life. Because I actually think, you know what, you can just be like that in your normal day. I'm not designing clothes to be worn in a factory. I'm not designing clothes that are going to be worn in a hospital or to save the world. I'm designing clothes for people to dress up and look fabulous in. And essentially, that's what it's about. It's about creating a product that might not be for everyone, and that's fine. The Eddie Slimane guy is going to wear his slim black suit, and that's cool. But there are certain people that can go, you know what, share my sensibilities and put it into something that is a bit more colourful in print. However, as you probably sort of say, there's a mention of humour at the very beginning. And I think you have to bring that humour back into it. Because for a guy to wear perhaps a printed pair of jeans or a printed shirt, if he's going to go into a pub environment that maybe he's not used to wearing a printed shirt or printed jeans in, he's got to kind of sort of have a story with it and be able to share a joke with it. So one of our prints, the Peckham Riviera, which was referenced from one of those childhood mats you'd have as a kid and you sort of play all your cars on, and we sort of Casper did a lot of work on creating it into like a Peckham version. With the chicken shop and the hair salons, and it gives a bit of a story, and it sets a light-hearted humour that can be translated and sort of had a laugh about in the pub environment. Because if he was just wearing a flamboyant, perhaps this shirt, it might be a bit weird. So we sort of try and bring print back into it, we try and bring humour back into it, we sort of try and put across these British sensibilities. Very British. And they are the guys ready to be burned on the stake. It fascinates me how all of these points and all of these sort of British bits, and I know I might sound like a raving BNP by talking about how proud we are of being British, but it's quite amazing that we are British because we are so unique. We are this mixtures of these amazing cultures that have sort of congregated in a tiny little island. And I think that's what transcends into being something so fascinating, something so special. We've got this such rich history of this migration coming in and leaving and going through it and bringing different cultures into the mix. It's like a sort of mad cocktail of all these different points of references and these prints and these sort of amazing textures and these amazing colours and these amazing stories and scenes that all sort of like amalgamate into one thing. A lot of my favourite artists who have sort of been briefly sort of put into this Gilbert and George, Grace and Perry, one of my big favourites is Jeremy Deller. They all sort of explore a similar theme. They all explore what it means to be British, how it is that we are British, what the ideas of being Britain and British is. Love that. I think that's one of my favourite images from the opening ceremony, which sort of sums up how weird and bonkers the British fashion industry is. And Sarah Lucas. And again, it took, I get sort of comments walking down the street still as this. And I think actually this is quite sane. Maybe I'm a bit weird and this isn't sane. My grandma certainly thinks I am a bit bonkers and thinks I should be locked up, but hey. Yet we're allowed to do all of this. We're allowed to be so sort of flamboyant in everything, from the way we protest and the way we express ourselves. Yet we can't be flamboyant or creative or crazy or just sort of how we want to be in the way we sort of dress as a normal day. And I guess that's ultimately everything captured into one that we want to try and achieve in what we're doing as a brand. Hopefully, what's been said and what you've seen and what you can see in your lookbooks and on our website and as a brand, as we grow, you'll kind of be able to hopefully make sense of it. I'll leave that for you guys to work out.